It is safe to say that the finals is in a bit of a rough spot right now. As of this video, the game has lost over 80% of its player base since release, with the player count dropping day by day. Everyone has given up on the game, but I'm still hopeful. But why? I still believe to this day that the game might have some of the highest potential of any shooter that I've ever seen and played, and way before I learned what I heard of today, I was sure that the current state of the game had to be part of some master plan to set the finals up for a long-term success. And as it turns out, I was completely right. As we all know by now, the finals was stealth launched on December 7th, 2023 in the middle of the Game Awards. And despite no real marketing other than the stunt, the finals quickly became one of the most played games on Steam with a peak of 242,000 concurrent players on Steam alone just a few days later. All the streamers were playing it, everyone were loving it, and the game was just blowing up on all the socials and everywhere. The game featured an amazing mix of the most popular shooters out there, along with amazing destruction capabilities, tons of variety with all types of playstyles, and beautiful visual and sound design to boot. What wasn't there to love? But with the good came the bad. So I guess what wasn't to love? Despite a lot of feedback from its previous beta tests, the finals was released with a lot of issues. The most glaring ones being optimization, bugs and exploits, and of course an insane amount of cheaters, along with some terrible game balance, like the nukes, where you could stick a C4 to any prop, including a barrel or even a chair, and hurl it at an enemy team to instantly wipe them in less than a second. Or the recon senses, an ability that literally gives you wall hacks across the entire map at any point in the game, basically for free. Players quickly grew bored of the same old gameplay loop, or became frustrated with the glaring issues that the developers were dragging their feet on fixing, or just grew bored from the lack of actual content, and every day saw a lower player count than the last. After release, the game didn't see any meaningful changes other than a few small tweaks to balance, not really covering what needed to be changed, and some smaller bug fixes, with the updates slowing down over the holidays. The game couldn't retain its players, and it was having a hard time finding new ones. Seemingly, you could argue it was from the lack of effective advertising, if there even was any at all. Streamers started quitting one by one, and with them left their communities. Shroud, who was spearheading the game's popularity in the first place, ended up leaving the finals himself about a month ago while posting a video with a pretty depressing title. It's safe to say that despite all of its potential, things were starting to look pretty bleak for the finals. But with the new year, we started seeing a change of pace. Every week there's been a new update, big or small, introducing bug fixes, quality of life changes, or even addressing hot, controversial topics that have arose in the community. In the last 4 weeks alone, we've already seen a nerf to aim assist, which was rolled out way too strong. We've also seen an addition to gyro aim, and even a curb to the re-west exploit that gave the abusers access to aim assist while playing on PC and on mouse and keyboard. These changes on their own are huge, and if you compare it to other game developers out there, even AAA developers like Respawn, the developers of Apex Legends, a game that has been out for 5 years, they still haven't caught up or done anything to these very glaring issues. As for balancing, even though they have dragged their feet on just straight up removing it from the game, we have seen tons of attempts at balancing nukes. I know that the mechanic is near and dear for Embark, the game studio, but I think that they've finally realized that nukes have got to go. As with this very patch, they have promised to take a look at the last remaining version of the nuke, that being the red barrel as well. And one of the few reasons that they can do this is because Embark is a lot smaller than most game studios with games of this caliber. The game has had under 100 employees working on it at its peak, which, if you know anything about modern game development, is not that much at all. I mean, in comparison, because we mentioned Apex, Respawn, their developer, has over 300 employees working on Apex alone. Embark is also using incredibly efficient development methods, and thanks to their smaller amount of developers, they don't need those big decisions to pass through management and bosses and game optimization experts or consultants, which allows them to actually address the aforementioned hot button issues. They can move fast and nip the problems in the bud way before they even become a real problem, and make sure that the player base stays happy. And that's great and all, but this just has to be said. If having a great, unique video game with an involved development team who makes all the right decisions would be enough to set a game up for success, then almost every indie game would go viral. So what is missing? All the way back since its release, there's been one thing that's been lacking for almost the entirety of the finals lifespan, and that is marketing. I mean, with a large company like Nexon backing them, Why hasn't Embark been marketing the finals as much as any other game trying to break into the market? Sure, we've seen like a TikTok ad here and there, but as a whole, there's been almost no attempts to bring in content creators or streamers or their communities. And as far as I know, there's been little to no attempts to keeping their current ones around either. And obviously, if anything, you could argue the whole no build-up, seemingly random stealth launch stunt all the way back in December was indicative of Nexon's marketing strategy moving forward. But I digress. So let's take a look at the numbers. The game established a player base back in the 7th of December last year, and other than the odd player here and there, it seems like the game just keeps losing players from that initial community. So it really begs me to ask, why aren't they bringing new players in? And that is a question I have been asking myself and chat for weeks, and thanks to what I have learned today, I finally might have a clear idea of what's going on. It's starting to look like Season 1 is almost like another beta. Even though the game officially is released, there are still so many frequent tweaks to the balancing, and so much work on fixing bugs behind the scenes rather than creating new content. It's almost looking like a beta rather than the official release. To me, it almost appears like Embark is playing the long game. They're taking the L on the short term, but they're setting up the game to blow up in Season 2. And before today, I thought this was all speculation, but now the cat is out of the bag. In Nexon's own Q4 earnings report released today, the 8th of February 2024, the company shed some light on their inner workings, how the Embark team has borrowed some help from the Nexon Korea team, and by utilizing their proprietary development tools, both of the teams combined have provided the game with patches and content at what they call a torrid pace, with so much more to come. Following this, the earnings report shed some light on Season 2 as well. And after reminding us of how fast development has been in the latest month or so of Season 1, Nexon shares that they are planning a robust and sustained marketing campaign with Season 2 in March. In the same paragraph, Nexon states that the finals is the strongest part of any virtual world in Nexon's history, and that they also will implement a relentless cascade of content updates, where they, in their own words, will run a marathon at a sprint pace. Which is a pretty bold promise, but if anyone's gonna pull it off, I'd trust Embark and Nexon to be the ones to do it. And in the end, they make it clear that they have a plan to make the finals a new and sustainable pillar in Nexon's global franchise strategy. And with these bold words from the big guys themselves, in addition to the developers putting their money where their mouth is with the incredible amount of content and patches we've been seeing as of late, there's no reason to doubt that no matter what happens, Nexon and Embark won't give up on this game as easily, and that all things considered, they haven't even started. The finals is starting to look like Nexon's baby in the same way that we've seen Apex Legends become EA's baby. But the key difference being that Embark is having a much easier time implementing changes into the game. And as I said before, I think that Season 1 has been nothing but a beta test for the game. Embark and Nexon are trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and they want to iron out all of the kinks before they double down with a content and marketing push that puts the game back into the mainstream. Because if the game's issues are as frustrating as they were around the start of the game, and if there's no reason to stick around, the marketing just won't be as efficient. Sure, they'll get players through the door, but without a quality product, most of the new players will just leave as fast as they had joined. It's safer to ensure that the game is in its best possible state before investing the big bucks and time into marketing. You really only get one, maybe two shots to win the trust of a gamer, and after that it is really hard to win it back. But anyways, what does this relentless cascade of content updates really mean? Generally speaking, content isn't the same as balance changes, and going off the last few weeks, I believe we might have seen the tip of the iceberg of their new plans already. We have already had 2 limited time modes, that being the solo banquet and then capture the spotlight, and I'm sure there are plenty more on the horizon. Content also usually refers to maps, cosmetic weapons, and anything in between. From Nexon's own words, we can expect a lot of new things being added to the game, which will keep it fresh, which not only brings in new players, but gets old-time players who previously had given up on the game back on board as well. As for marketing, I believe that a good marketing strategy will be key in order to put the finals back on top. The easy answer could just be influencer marketing, you know, sponsored streams and videos that brings large-scale content creators back into the fray. And if done right, many creators might just stick around and keep playing the finals, which lets new communities learn about the game and hopefully bring them over as well. That being said, knowing how costly direct activations can be, a more cost-efficient way to bring the creators in while still rewarding their more dedicated player base and giving the opportunity for a community to naturally cultivate will most likely be through an esports scene. And as I've said time and time and again, both in my videos and on my live streams on twitch.tv/Ottr, I believe that the finals can be a perfect game for esports. I mean, thematically, the game itself is an esport or something. And while the normal esports scene probably will take some time to flourish, and since esports historically aren't that interesting to anyone outside of the game's core fanbase, instead of straight up investing into a cash prize tournament that anyone can join, the easiest choice for Nexon is hosting a Twitch Rivals. For those unaware, a Twitch Rivals is an event that almost every multiplayer game has had by now, where large streamers are invited to compete for huge sums of money. These events both bring in large communities who get to watch the game in action, as well as shine light on well-deserving pros and creators who are good but don't have the fan base to grind the game as much as they would want. And the promise of competitive gaming with huge prize pools and a lot of potential eyes on the streams not only helps small streamers, but it has the potential to bring in huge streamers like Ninja, Aceu, or even Shroud to compete as well. Events like these have the added benefit of starting the creation of competitive communities as well. And since I came from Apex, and Apex, just like the finals, had a stealth launch, I'm gonna make a comparison, and I think this might be the best possible comparison that you can make. Apex wasn't too much of a big deal in the first few weeks or months after it came out. Sure, it kind of blew up at the beginning, but it wasn't really getting into the mainstream as anyone would have wanted. But after a few sponsorships, and most importantly, a Twitch Rivals, where large streamers such as Shroud and Ninja participated, the game really started taking off and the competitive community started to set roots. And funny enough, it's thanks to events like Twitch Rivals that streamers like Dizzy and Aceu are who they are today. That being said, in order for the game to host a Twitch Rivals, or any type of tournament for that matter, the game needs custom lobbies, which at the time of this video doesn't exist. But that being said, in a now deleted tweet, which I sadly don't have access to, so just trust me bro, a leak says there has been talks of one of the largest scrim and tournament hosts hosting tournaments for the game as soon as for Season 2, so odds are we're gonna start seeing custom lobbies and tournaments and maybe even high-profile events such as the Twitch Rivals, one can dream, as soon as in March this very year. And the thing is, a unique game that combines the best of all shooters with a dedicated set of developers making the hard decisions in record-splitting pace, pumping out new content and patches, running a marathon at a sprint pace, all while being backed by a $17.4 billion company just can't fail. And if they play their cards right and keep bringing new players in, it is safe to say that the finals can be the biggest game of 2024. Thank you all for watching. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this and the game's future as a whole, so let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.